Hello, and welcome to another edition of Making Your Digital Mark. I am Lisa Apolinski, your host, America's digital content futurist, content coach, and creator. And I am so excited to have on with me today. It's a little bit of a different guest than I normally have, but it also will provide value to you, my audience members. This is John St. James. He is one of the expert leadership training thought leaders. There it is, leadership training thought leaders. And he is the joy and success expert in residence. So he helps his clients create success, create joy, and ultimately create happiness. And John, I am so excited to have you on the show today. Can you give me a little bit more background for our audience about what you do, who you work with, and what problems you solve?
Yeah, so that'd be great. And thank you for having me, Lisa. My name is John St. James, and I do a lot of different things. I'm one of those guys, I wear several different hats. So I run a full-time for-profit organization. It's an international sanctioning body. And we have schools, all over the United States and Canada and various places. Anyway, I'm a ninth degree Grand Master of a martial arts system. And with that, I oversee my niche is martial arts. So I work very closely with martial arts school owners. But because martial arts schools are full of human beings, and since we're all in the people business, I work and coach actually a lot of my clients, not just on growing their schools, right? But I also work with them on developing personally, professionally, financially as well. So that's kind of my main thing that I do. The secondary thing I do is I oversee a nonprofit, a public charity. It's a 501c3. And that one is, I founded that back in 2011. And we use that to actually provide free martial arts and leadership training to children and adults in Mexico, Nepal, throughout the United States, specifically in the southeastern area. We have at-risk schools, and those are free of charge to men, women, and children that are at risk. So that's a secondary thing I do. And then, like you, in all of my spare time, I write, and I have a book which it's called The Master's Path, and it's how to intentionally create happiness, joy, and fulfillment in your life. That's actually on Amazon. So if anybody has that interest, wonderful. And so I'm a writer. I speak. I'm actually leaving next week to speak in Oahu. I have a gig on Waikiki Beach, and I figured
Wow.
so I'll be out there for a week. And yeah, so that's what I do. And like you, I'm all about learning, growing, sharing, serving, leading, and hopefully inspiring.
That's fantastic. And one of the things that I love about your book and your message is the focus on intentionality, not
Yes.
just hoping things happen, hoping connections happen, hoping success happens, hoping a client shows up at your doorstep. And I know in your book, you lay out a 5 step formula, as it were, onto how the readers can connect, help me out here, connect, inspire, and really have that relationship building that leads to success, joy, happiness, revenue, the life that you want. I
Absolutely.
would, yeah, I would love for you to talk us through that, because one of the things that I coach is on using your relationships in your community to build your personal brand legacy. We
Right.
can't do it in a vacuum. We can't do it alone. There has to be connection, inspiration, intentionality.
Right.
And I would love for you to go through those 5 steps for the audience, because I think that will also help them with their content and how they approach new members to their community.
Right. Yes, I'd be happy to. So, we'll take it step by step because there are 5 steps to this. So, step one is basically you want to find out, you want to build trust, you want to build rapport. So, what you're really looking to do is find out what does your hopefully your prospective client, your member, your customer, what do they want? What do they need? Right. And so, here's what I know. What we want and what we need are sometimes two different things, right? So I always
Yes.
like to say, I want a Corvette. I want a brand new Corvette. I just love the way they look. But do I really need a new Corvette? And the answer is no. So we're really looking for what is it that they really want? What do they really need? And really, what we're saying is, what are they hoping for? What do they hope for? So we have different ways of doing this. Step one, as with anytime you try to build a relationship based on trust, by the way, this is called the law of solid ground. And I stole that from one
Nice.
of my mentors, John Maxwell. I also happen to be on the John Maxwell team. So I'm a internationally certified coach, trainer, speaker. But here's what I know about the law of trust. Excuse me, the law of solid ground. It is based on trust. So the way we do that is we start by asking questions, right? We ask questions, we listen very carefully, intentionally, as you said. And then once we have something, at this point, we're able to go deeper and start to build the relationship even more. So there's a great little acronym. I'm sure you're very familiar with it. It's used in marketing all the time, and it's IDEA. All right. I is for interest. Find out what their interests are. Two, find out what they desire. If you find this out, you start to build an emotional connection. That's the E, which then leads to attraction, the A, idea. So, how do we do this? Well, we use another acronym. I like to use acronyms. You'll find those in my books, just ways to help you remember these things. And the acronym is POGO. And it simply stands for the person's name and a little bit about them, the organizations they belong to, whether it be at work, school, social type societies, whatever. So the organizations, their goals, which includes their desires, their hopes, wants, and needs. And then the O, the other O, stands for anything else that is pertinent. Could be hobbies, could be things that like what do they love to eat, whatever. What you're trying to find a connection. Like you and I, we've never formally met. I've seen you
Right.
on a number of different things that we do together, but I've never formally met you. And so one of the first things I said, now, where are you from? I didn't do that because I was trying to pogo you, genuinely interested in you. And here we come to learn that you live in an area where my mother and father lived for years, where my brother lives or lived. Actually, he's moved to the West Coast. But, I've got relatives in your area. So what we do is we just ask a question, we listen carefully, we wait for the response, and then we ask a question off of that. Now, here's what I know. People they want to be heard, they want to be seen, they want to be valued, and they want to be understood. So this is taking the focus off of me and putting the focus on you because I can't help you. I can't build a relationship. I can't build trust with you unless I know something about you. So this is really great. And when we get into sales at some point down the road, this is the way to sell. It is really not to sell anybody anything. It's to share your story. We're going to talk about that and really to listen carefully. Listen very carefully because oftentimes if you listen well, the person is going to sell themselves on what they
Yes.
need because you've been working on that. So step one is the law of solid ground. It's building trust, building rapport, developing the relationship, getting to know the person by doing the pogo, and hopefully that helped.
Yeah. And one thing that I think is so critical, and it's something that a lot of, and I'm sure you get LinkedIn messages all the time where they ask for a connection, which is great. And then you get the next email and it is a laundry list of their services. And the only thing they ask at the end is, when can I book a time with you?
Sure.
So they've lost the opportunity and the momentum. like you said, to find that common ground. And
Yeah.
asking questions is a key to that. And it's not, do you need my services? Are you looking for someone to help build your website or whatever it is that they're selling? It's, how can I support you?
Right.
What are you struggling with today? It's open-ended questions that allows that person, like you said, to share elements of themselves. And I say this all the time with personal branding. Personal branding has nothing to do with you. It's about your audience and the value you provide to them. And you
Absolutely.
can't provide value if you don't know anything about that individual and what it is that they're searching for. I think that's so critical. I love that. So, step one, law of common ground. And I love the acronyms. I will remember POGO for the rest of my life. And I love these laws. So then what is step number two?
And real quickly, one of the things that on that, before I get to two, one of the things that I do is I help school owners put a leadership program into their school. And one of the things we do in the leadership program is we teach this technique, this pogo. They literally get up, they do a meet and greet. Hi, my name is John, and you are, and you say Lisa, and hey, Lisa, it's really nice to meet you. Where are you from, Lisa? And we go right into the pogo. And they practice this back and forth until it becomes natural. Because most people really don't know what to say, or they're shy. And by having this little framework, if you will, it really helps. Okay, so now moving on. Number two. So number two is being a good finder. So let me explain a little bit here. When I say a good finder, here's what we know about people, right? We know that people want to be recognized, they want to be acknowledged, and occasionally they want to be encouraged. And so here's what I know. The best way to do that is to really look for what I call the little wins first. Look for their accomplishments. Look for what they have done that you can acknowledge and recognize them about. And then give them a genuine compliment. And this is critical. Okay. You got a lot of people go, oh, that sounds great. I love it. And be specific, genuine. What do you really like about what you just heard? And so this is called the law of victory. The law of victory is looking for little wins, which build to bigger wins. Now, somebody may start out giving you one of their big wins, and you're like, wow, that is phenomenal. Tell me more about that. So I'm looking for things that I can use to genuinely compliment them. One of the things when I'm talking to folks about this stuff, I talk about, we've been to Alaska, my wife and I, many, many times, right? So we're going back twice this year. We're going in June and we're going back in September. And it'll be like my fifth or sixth time in Alaska. When I go, I typically like to pan for gold because, it's
Oh,
kind of cool.
yeah, I have
And
done
so,
that.
yeah. They have one outside of Fairbanks we go to.
Yep.
Anyway, so you've done it before. You're taking dirt, you're putting it in a pan, right? Then you're shaking the pan back and forth and lifting it up and down, and you're trying to move the dirt away from the heavy metal, in this case, gold, which then sinks to the bottom. My wife, she found like $40 worth of gold one time, which was like, whoa. So
Wow.
here's what I know. When you're working with people, it's very similar. I mean, we all suffer from the human condition. We all have faults. So if we focus on faults, that's not going to build influence. That's not going to build the relationship. So it's kind of like panning for gold. Sometimes we have to move through some of the dirt to find the gold nuggets. And with people, it's the same way. We just have to ask them, what is it that really juices them? Where's their passion? And once we find that, now we can start to look for things, these little wins that lead to bigger wins. This is a great way to continue, again, back to build a relationship, build trust. The person, somebody, I'm not going to mention their name, but somebody well that I do as, I've worked with myself. And this person is, they're very personable. They're very easy to get to want to learn more about them. And after building some relationship, and I know you did the same because I read your book, I really wanted to do business with this person. And this is kind of what it's like. It's like learning enough about the person that I trust them. I really feel they're going to put me on the right path. I call it the master's path because anybody that has authority, they're an authority in a field, they're an expert in what they do. If I feel that I need to learn something from them, I would love to do that if I trust them. And that goes back to being a good finder. So step two, be a good finder.
Yeah, I love that. And it also, again, keeps the focus on the prospect or the audience member.
Yes.
Um, which again, I love this recurring theme. This just brings me such joy. And there's an intentionality to it that's not salesy or icky, right? It's genuinely wanting to learn more about the person and learn more about things that they are proud of. And who
That's
doesn't want to talk about things that they're proud of? Absolutely. So, step one was law of common ground. Step two, law of
be a good,
victories.
be
Yeah.
a good finder, the law of
Be a
victory,
good,
if you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be a
Yeah.
good finder. Let's go to step number three.
Yeah, so step three is, and this really is in tune with your book, which was great, by the way. Personal brand, building the world's greatest story ever. I don't know if I said that exactly right, but
That is okay. I'm
I
happy
know
for the accolades,
yeah,
regardless.
no, it's a great book. And that book really, one of the focuses of the book is being able to share a compelling story, a story that resonates, a story that, maybe fosters empathy or understanding, something where, a good story leads to a good message, and a good message leads to a good invite. Now, you happen to be using Jesus Christ, which is, the greatest story ever told. After all these years, as you pointed out in the book, there's still, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people that follow Jesus Christ.
Right.
And, Jesus was a pretty simple guy until he really started to share his wisdom. He's a pretty simple guy with a pretty simple story that ends up being very compelling because he had a series of compelling messages. He used parables to do that.
Yeah.
And the same thing with building your brand. You want to tell your story. Now, this starts. I use this Japanese term quite a bit in my teaching. It's aikigai, and aikigai simply means something that you love to do, something that you're good at, something that people need, something that people would pay for. It's your mission. It's what drives you. It's your passion in life. When you find that, it's very easy to talk about it. It's very easy because you're not really selling anybody, you're telling your story. So here's what I know. First things that I know for a fact that all of us, including me, we all tune in with the same radio station. I'm sure you've heard it, WIIFM, right? What's in it for me? What's in it for me? So we have to provide in the story some form of a value proposition, right? I call it my top 10 list. I stole that from David Letterman years ago. When I'm trying to share my story with somebody, I try to find as many benefits that could help them, not me, help them as possible. It's a top 10 list. It's providing the big enough why. Okay. Now, also, what I know about this, and I heard this years ago, and I love this. So I'm going to share it with you. And I can't take credit for it. I don't even know who I heard it from, really. If I did, I'd give you their name. But it's the four human payoffs. This is what drives most people to do what they do. And if you understand this, when you're sharing your story, you can, in a way, you can incorporate this. And the first one is simply people want to look good, people want to feel good, people want to be right, and people want to be in control. Those are the four payoffs. People want to look good, feel good, be right, be in control. If my story allows them to learn something where they're going to look good or feel better about themselves, if they can be right instead of being wrong, they're more apt to want to listen to me more and more apt to want to learn more. So when we do this properly, when we tell the right story with the right theme to the right person, right fit client, when we do that, we're more able to attract and captivate them. So if you said to me, hey, John, how in the world is this guy in the martial arts? That's this ninth degree grandmaster and, blah, blah. How are you going to help me to improve my business? I can go back. I'm not going to do it today. I can go back and tell you my story of teaching martial arts in college and at community centers and at YMCA's and at daycare centers and at colleges. I mean, every church halls. I've taught everybody that you can imagine. And over the years, I've really learned how to work with people because you have to understand human nature. So, having said that, step three is to share, not sell. Share your story, share what inspires you. And if you're passionate about it, and this person has a genuine interest, well, you may have attracted and captivated them to the next step.
Yep. And let's go to the next step because I'm just intrigued. This is
Yeah,
great.
so the next step is invite them to join. Invite them
Ah,
to. So I've heard this like so many different ways, right? In sales, you hear people go, so, I've worked with you for a while. Are you on board? Right? It could be whatever you want it to be. I'm not here to give you sales stuff today. What I'm here to tell you is you've got to make it personal. It's got to be there has to be the relationship first. The relationship has to be there. It has to be built on trust. They have to hear your story, and there's got to be a connection. And if there is, now you invite them to join. Now, here's what I know. You invite people individually. You invite people personally. You don't invite by the group. Now, don't get me wrong. I have done that in the past. I have invited, I was trying to raise a bunch of money one time and I was trying to upgrade my school and I invited all of our members in and all of their parents. And I did this presentation like I was trying to, build a big church, and I need your help and, you can be a charter member. And I did all that and it worked. But here's what I know. If I want to work with somebody and mentor them and coach them, and if I've been working with them a little bit for a while, sharing things with them, giving them things that will help them to learn, grow, share, serve, lead, and inspire, then eventually they're going to want to learn more. So this is where we invite them to join. And when we do invite them to join, remember the value proposition has to be there. They have to see value. And if you do all of that, you have just done what is called the law of the buy-in. And the law of the buy-in simply is this. If I believe what you say, and if I trust what you're saying, and I need what you're saying, and I have the funds to do this, well, the more likely I'm going to invest because I really need it, and you're an expert at it, and I need to learn from you to shorten the learning curve so I can get right on to doing what I want to do, which is lead a life of happiness, joy, and fulfillment. And that's kind of what the book's about, right? So my book anyway. So that's that. And one more thing, I'll give you one more. This is this is where we get into another law. I love these laws. This is the law of navigation. And the law of navigation simply states that anybody can steer the ship, but only a true expert can chart the course. So you can't share your story and expect somebody to want to join you unless they are convinced you're an expert at what you do and you really can't help them. And so this is where the law of buy-in comes in because you really have shared your story. They really do believe you can help them. And now you're just simply inviting them to join. And whatever that is for you, that would be step four.
yeah. And I just want to point out because I've noticed a pattern. So step one obviously is about the prospect, the audience. Step two, prospect audience. Step three, it's your story as it relates to the prospect,
It's a
helping them understand. Yeah. So it's again, you're maybe talking about yourself, but it's relatability to the prospect. Step four, again, focused on the prospect. And that's a key element that I want to make sure I incorporate now. Am I actually asking my prospect, my audience member, my new community member to join me? Am I inviting them in? Or am I just hoping that they figure it out? And
Yeah.
actually extending that invitation again shows I value you.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So, I'll tell you truthfully, some of the best stories that have ever been told to me, the person is so genuine in what they're saying that this is like they live they live this, and you know that they live it, and you know they're really good at it, and you're like, wow, I really want to tap into that. That's something I need. And so this is where anybody that says, I'm not a salesy type of person, I don't like to sell. It's not about selling. It's about getting your brand in front of people and sharing it with as many people as you can, and I just believe that in time, the right people will find you. And that's kind of what's happened with me is, I just have been on this crusade that I'm on for so many years. I'm an old guy. And what happens is after a while, I tend to attract people who are like, wow, that's something that I want. I'm interested in that. And so, but what I do is all built on building people up. It's all built on self-development. It's all built on teaching a system of thinking, and again, we call it the master's path. It's a number of phases. It's learn and grow, phase one. Phase two is share and serve, and phase three is to lead and inspire. Phase one is all about your formative years, and you're learning and you're growing, and you're experiencing. And then in phase two, you're serving your apprenticeship. You're actually working with a master. That's what I did. I worked with a master. I actually lived over the men's locker room while I was going to college. Before I got married, I was living over the men's locker room because I lived in the school, and I
Wow.
was I was the instructor's number one student. I taught there. That's actually where I learned to write contracts and sell contracts as a young man. I was all of 18 at the time. But here's what I know. I know that, that wasn't the very first thing I did. I had to teach an introductory lesson. I had to teach them what was involved. I had to learn about the person. And after I learned about the person, now I was ready to invite them to join. So again, back to that, it's building trust. It's that process.
Yeah. And also in that invitation allows that person to say not yet. It gives, like you said, going back to what you said about the four things that drive people. The last one was they want to be in control. If
Yes.
they feel like you are pressuring them, if they feel like they have to do it, if you are using, I call it that damsel in distress language. Like, if you don't do this, you're going to die. Not for nothing. And, I feel like I do a pretty good job with my clients. My clients will agree. They make a ton of money, but they made it this far without me. They probably can continue. The people that work with me want to level up to a point where it becomes just right clients showing up, raising their hand, and they pay the value that you're worth.
Yeah.
That's what I bring. I don't say to them, you're never going to make it without me, because that's not true. They've made it so far without me. So having that invitation allows them to say, I'm not ready yet. I have to get this in order. I want to be in the right mind space. And then honoring that answer, I think, is
Yeah.
critical. Yeah,
Yes, I agree.
absolutely. Yeah. So let's move on to step 5.
Yeah, the last step in the process. So the last step in the process is the one that's the most important of all. And that is, so I left the best for last. That is to build your character. Now, when I say build your character, I want to zoom in. I want to get real clear on what we're talking about here. And I'll even give you an example. So when we talk about building our character, we're talking about planting our flag. We're talking about telling somebody what we stand for. Okay. It's our point of view. And our point of view has to be strong because in any relationship, there's this. I don't know if you can see that.
Yep.
There's
Yep.
greater than, equal to,
Equal
or
or less. Yep.
And yeah, somebody shared that with me a long time ago. And if somebody is very strong in their convictions, they really believe with all of their heart what they're saying, they will usually not be equal to or less than. The person will see them as an expert and go, okay, yeah, no, I see what you're saying. I understand. And so this is where we stake our claim. This is where we not only tell somebody what we stand for, but we tell somebody what we stand against. Now, here's what I know in life, you either stand for something or you fall for everything. And there's a lot of people who fall for a lot. So we want to be clear up front. And I'll give you a quick example of this. I'm not going to use the person's name, but I was actually involved with a mentor who listened to everything that I wanted and needed and hoped for. And at the end, I knew this individual well. I had been on a number, there was all that work had been done up front. And I really respected this individual. And this individual at the end said, John, I'm not really sure I can help you. I'm not positive that I am the person that's going to be able to get you from here to there. And I just said to him, I said, you know what? For that reason alone, I want to work with you more. Because he wasn't just going to try to sell me anything. He really wanted me to sell myself. I had already sold myself. I needed this guy. So when you're working with people, make sure they know clearly where you stand, your point of view. And we know this in politics because my gosh, we just went through the cycle. The ones that have the strongest opinions, and it's usually not what they stand for, it's what they stand against.
Yep.
Human nature being what it is, when you find that you are standing for something so strongly that somebody feels that, and you tell them what you stand against, you've drawn your line in the sand. Now you're more likely to find the right fit client, the person who feels just as you do. And that's what they do in politics all the time. A lot of people call that mudslinging, but really all mudslinging is differentiating your platform from the other people's platform. You stand against what they stand for, and so you're attracting all these other people that stand for what you stand for. So that's a very important piece of that puzzle. It's about being resolute. It's about being unwavering. It's about being purposeful. And if you have a strong enough purpose, people will feel that. And so, this is the law of influence. I'll finish with this. The law of influence simply states that, everything we do in leadership is based on influence, nothing less, nothing more. If I'm leading, you are more likely to follow because my point of view is strong enough and you feel very comfortable with me. We built the relationship and I believe what I believe and I'm willing to stand on it. I'm staking my claim. And if you disagree, that's fine. I may not be the right person for you. Maybe I can help you find the right person because ultimately this is about you, not me. But at the end of the day, you need to build your character. And so, step 5, build your character. Be sure about what it is that you do, why you do it, and who you really want to work for and work with, more importantly. Because you know this, if you have a client, you're going to get much further down the road if you're working with them as opposed to against them. And so this is where sometimes, you have to, I've had to tell people, even though we don't ever want to make anybody wrong, I have to tell them, look, I've done this a long time. I'm going to tell you what works. I hope you'll listen because this will lead you in the direction I believe you want to go based on everything you've already told me. And it comes back down to full cycle. It comes back to trust. It's what we
Yeah.
started is building trust.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a couple things in that last step that I think are really critical. And this might be a little more business and business operations, and that's okay. Um, First and foremost, it's okay to let a client know that it's not a good fit.
Sure.
And again, there's not a right or wrong answer. It's that if you understand how you work, what you can do, and your client is not a good fit to you, and you try to force it or you try to hold on because and I've done this, and I did this last year, and it was the most miserable 2 to 3 months of my career in quite some time, where I'm like,
Hmm.
well, I committed to this. I want to see this person succeed. And I was just beaten up and beaten down
Oh, yeah.
over and over and over and over. But I was like, but I still stayed true to my brand, which is to be relentlessly helpful. I'm going to help you whether you really want it or not. And I'm going to share with you what I know works because I've used it and I've taught my clients how to use it and they're successful.
Yeah.
And it finally got to the point where we had to part ways. And instead of saying, oh, that person was horrible and that person was all over the place and blah, 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 I was just like, you know what? It wasn't a good fit. I knew it from when we were talking about the proposal. I already knew it and I didn't listen to that inner voice. And there's that inner voice is there to guide you. It
Yeah.
helps you to not step in stuff. Um, and I kind of ignored it. I took a client on anyway. It was a ton of work for very little money and a lot of aggravation and a lot of sleepless nights. And I learned from it. And now I'm like, it's okay to say, this doesn't seem like it's a good fit. And I, I think you should be looking for somebody else. I think that's totally key. And then the second thing that I wanted to say is that you can stand for things and still live in the world of multiple right answers.
Oh,
Those are
yeah.
not mutually exclusive states of being. So, anyone who has heard me speak, heard me being interviewed, heard me on stage, I talk about living in the world of multiple right answers. It allows you to, like you said, learn and grow, expand your horizons because we don't know what we don't know. It keeps you open to possibility. And that's great. But you also need to be, like you said, very sure of your area of genius. And if someone hires you, they're hiring you for that area of genius. And one of the things that I always talk about with my clients before I work with them, and I actually do a 20-minute free consult with them because I want to see how we're going to work and how coachable they are, because it's really around coaching. One of the things I tell them is there are many points of view. There are so many marketing experts out there. You could swing a cat and hit a dozen of them, right?
Hmm.
I don't recommend doing that, but you could. That's okay, but you're paying me for my point of view, my expertise. So let's use your money appropriately and let's follow what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that was one of the issues with the not right fit client last year. This individual kept bringing in other people who, number one, it wasn't their area of expertise. And number two, it was like just crowding all these non chefs into the kitchen, criticizing the chef because everyone has a different taste palette. Content is like that. What I write for person A is not going to resonate for person B, which is why we spend a lot of time together and I get their personality and their personal brand DNA infused into the content and teach them how to do that.
Yeah.
This person kept asking other people and they kept adding salt and pepper and cumin and dill and then it became a mess and then blame me for it. And I was like, well, I don't know what to tell you. And again, you try to block those things, but when that happens, take it from my experience, shut it down immediately and say, listen, if you're going to work with me, you need to listen to me. If you want to listen to these other people, then hire them and we'll stop working together
Yeah.
because you can't you can't listen to me and listen to someone else. And I hate to put a Bible quote in here, but you can't serve two masters. It's too difficult. You can't please two people. It's not going to work out. I can't try to do what you want and then also listen to somebody else. You can't ask me my opinion and ask someone else when it's totally opposed and it's two very different opinions. So be okay with, like you said, standing for your area of genius, not in terms of arrogance, but in terms of expertise. Mm-hmm. And again, you're actually doing your clients a disservice when you become that yes person and agree to whatever they say. You're actually not helping them to grow. You're taking kind of the easy way out, in my opinion.
It's funny, you're talking about these things, and I'm thinking about something I actually heard earlier today. Like you, I'm sure, always feeding my brain with, as much good stuff as I can get. Because as you said, I mean, we're always learning, we're always growing. That never stops. Somebody asked me one time, sir, you've been doing this for 50 years. You're, this high level expert at what you do. And I say, I practice every day. Every single day I practice because I can always get better. Now, here's what I know. Like what you just shared is critical because you said something there that everybody needs to hear. And that is, I learned something from this. And what this individual was sharing this morning was wisdom, true wisdom. The equation for wisdom is experience plus introspection. So we all have experiences in life and we hopefully learn from them. But if we really learn from them, I mean, really learn from them, we don't repeat our mistakes over and over again. Now that we know, very simple, right? It's very simple. Everybody should understand that. But the truth is, the human condition being what it is, most people are stuck in their habits. Subconsciously, they're stuck in their habits. Their programming doesn't allow for them to sit down and go, okay, that didn't work. Why didn't that work? And really take the time to be introspective about it. Once you do that, then you've learned, there's a better way for me to work with my client. And that is just to be honest with them after I built the rapport and the relationship to let them know, what my expectations are. I find very few people do that. They don't share their expectations. I have a client call with four people. When is it? It's tomorrow. It's tomorrow. I have four clients on the phone tomorrow. They all serve on a committee in my group. And I'll be talking about my expectations. So, but first, before I start talking about my expectations, I'm going to ask them what theirs are. And I'm going to ask them, what are they looking to do? What do they want? What do they need from being in this group? And then after they're done, I'm going to tell my expectations. And at the end of that, I'll just say, is this something you would like to do? And if so, I invite you not to join because they've already joined. I invite you to continue on. And, so bottom line here is, yeah, what you just shared was very, very critically important for anybody who's trying to help somebody else is they've got to know that you have expectations, but only after you know what theirs are. You've got to start with theirs because you may be able to very quickly determine they're not the right fit. And then you're not spending a lot of time. It's like, I've heard what you said, and it's like this one guy said, I may not be the right person for you. Because see, I was jumping ahead. I had all these things I wanted to accomplish. And he realized for me to get there, I was going to have to walk what I call the master's path, which is you got to go through the process. There are shortcuts. Let's be honest. There are shortcuts. But success is a long-term proposition.
Yes.
You got to be really willing to work at it. So anyway.
Yeah. And not only success, but as you say in your book, intentional and sustainable success.
Yes.
Right? It's not just a flash in the pan, it's something that continues to build and again creates that legacy that people want, business owners want, consultants want, authors, speakers, anyone wants. They want some sort of legacy where they can look back and go, huh, I actually
Yep.
accomplished quite a bit. Good for me.
Hey, yes, yes, exactly.
Yeah, I love that. I could talk to you all day, John. I just want to let you know that.
I feel the same. So we really connected. And
Yeah,
that's exactly what this is all about. It's all about learning to connect with people so that at the end of the day, you're happy, you're joyful, and you have a feeling of fulfillment. You did something that was good. You've helped people. You've helped people. I mean, I love what I do. I help people learn, grow, share, serve, lead, inspire. I help them do that. And, I'm just a cog in the wheel, but it really brings me a lot of happiness and joy. So, yeah, thank you so much for having me on today. I really
absolutely.
appreciate it.
Thank you. So, if the audience would like to contact you to learn more about what you do, to get a copy of your book, um, or just to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
So, my recommendation is to go in and get this book and read it. And if you find that it's helpful to you, that you've learned anything from it, that you feel you could grow with this, please, by all means, be in touch with me. We have a website. I have a number of websites. I probably have 4 or 5 websites, but the website that you're going to want to go to is www.masterspathconsulting, 3 words, masterspathconsulting.com. That plain and simple. And by the way, it's just all together, Masters Path Consulting. Um, and literally, you can go in, you can go into my website, you can send me a message. I would love to hear from you. And like yourself, I do the same thing. I do a discovery call so I can hopefully discover a little bit more about what the person's looking to do. And then I'll be very honest with them. If I'm the person that can help them, I will. And so there we go.
Oh, fantastic. Awesome. Well, again, thank you, John, for being on today. This was fantastic. And I learned a lot as well. And I have stuff I'm going to be doing differently, which is awesome. Love it. Love it. And thank you all for watching today. And if there's one thing I can leave you with that I learned from this, and I will have stated this before, and I'm going to state it again, that we always want to focus on our audience. It's about them, people first before us. And starting with questions to learn about those people is the way you build trust, the relationship, and the connection. I'm Elise Sapolinski, and we'll see you next time.